from one battlefield to another. I mean, Ukraine just pulled off one of the real amazing battlefield feats. It shows us the capacity of a new form of warfare. I mean, Ukraine-Russia war is already a war dominated by drones. Now, I don't know how much one can extrapolate from this to other battlefields. The reality is that in a battlefield that has F-22s and F-35s, how do you really need as many drones? I mean, the F-35 and the F-22 have firepower that no drone has. I mean, it is interesting to think. Everybody's saying, warfare has changed dramatically forever. It'll never be the same. As long as the enemy has not figured out how to down an F-35, and they haven't, not a single F-35 has been downed so far. As long as Israel can basically fly over the entire Middle East without really, not really suffering any casualties to its airplane, not just F-35s, but F-16s and others, in spite of Arab countries having advanced Soviet air defense systems, Israel could just go into Iran and dismantle their air defense system with these planes. I'm just not sure if we're learning the right lessons. The reality is that in Ukraine, neither party, neither Ukraine nor Russia, has achieved air superiority. But if NATO was involved in this war, it will have achieved air superiority over the Russians because it flies by far superior aircraft to the Russians. And if NATO is involved, it would have a lot more air defense systems than Ukraine does to protect it against Russian planes. So again, I think we have to learn something from what's happening in Ukraine. But when you see all these military experts telling you the world has completely changed, warfare will never be the same, you got to be a little skeptical about that. We'll get to one of the reasons to be skeptical in a little bit. It has to do with lasers. But first, you have to realize that a NATO, an American war, you would have air superiority. Now, it could be that an America standoff against China, it couldn't get air superiority. It could be that Chinese planes are just as good as American planes. It could be that Chinese air defense systems can locate and down an F-35. We will see. And in that case, maybe there is this fundamental shift and drones will be required. You probably still, for a superpower like the United States, you probably need both. What did Ukraine actually do? Well, Ukraine loaded up containers, wooden cabins mounted on the back of cargo trucks. And they engineered a really clever drone launching system. The mobile containers that were on the back of a truck looked like simple rural container sheds. But inside, they held reinforced structures, hidden launch platforms, battery charging stations, and remote-controlled roof mechanisms. The design allowed for the drones to be launched either vertically or at an angle, depending on their type. And they had built-in signal shielding, which helped them avoid early detection by Russian surveillance. Now, they took these and they somehow got them into Russia. It's still not clear how they got them into Russia. Maybe through Belarus. Don't know. But they somehow got them into Russia on trucks. And they basically took these silos, these mobile silos. They used, I'm sure, local sympathizers. They moved them deep into Russian territory. And then the trucks were quietly placed, driven to pre-selected sites near the key air bases that they wanted to strike. They parked in forests and farms and industrial areas where they blended into the landscape. They remained there for days, even weeks, we don't know exactly. And then, remember, the drones were preloaded, they were charged, and they were waiting for command to strike. When the time came, encrypted signals were sent remotely to these containers. The roof opened, the drones launched, and they attacked four major Air Force bases of the Russian Air Force. It's called Operation Spiderweb. The consequence of that is the destruction of about a third, by some estimates, about 41 aircraft, about a third of the long-range strategic bombers that Russia has, a number of other combat aircraft, including AWAC planes. These are intelligence gathering coordination planes. The United States has them. They fly above a battleground and they coordinate all the efforts of the Air Force and the ground troops. They destroyed 41 of these planes. These are strategic bombers. This is part of Russia's nuclear deterrence. They would use these bombers in an attack on the United States or on NATO if they ever used nukes. But with regard to Ukraine, these are the platforms from which they launch many of their cruise missiles. And many of these planes had been moved deep into Russian territory, far away from the Ukrainian border, so that they wouldn't get damaged. They fly up and they launch the cruise missiles from the platforms far away so they cannot be intercepted. The planes cannot be intercepted by ground air defense systems. I mean, this is just a stunning achievement. It is a massive success story. It was complete surprise, a massive both intelligence and failure and an air defense failure by the Russians. The air bases do not have air defenses that can deal with drones. And, you know, destroying these planes, they cannot build replacements. It's not even like tanks where the Russians have some facilities to build tanks. They can't build them fast enough, but they can build them. There just is no way to replace these airplanes. These are old, most of them Soviet or early Russian airplanes. You can't, you know, 100 million doesn't buy it. You just can't build them. It would be billions of dollars to reassemble any manufacturing capabilities to do it, and they don't have it. They just don't have the manufacturing capacity to build these kind of planes. So this is a brilliant move by the Ukrainians. It shows the world their engineering capabilities. It shows off, you know, this incredible ability that they have. In drone production, Ukraine now is building massive quantities of drones at amazing speed with amazing capabilities. By the way, most of the parts are being imported from China, but the actual drones are being assembled in. And remember, this attack that destroyed these priceless airplanes, this attack was done with drones that cost a few hundred to maybe a few $1,000s. If you saw a drone like this, it's basically a toy with a bomb attached to it. It's one of those drones you play around with that you see people at the beach and other places playing around with. And those drones are, they attach, you know, explosives to them, and they just slam them into these airplanes near the fuselage, and they go up in smoke. You can find videos of the drone bombing and destroying these airplanes all over the web. But look, this is a massive win for the U.S. It's a massive win for Europe. This is why funding the war in Ukraine is cheap. It's a great investment. They're creating so much mayhem and destruction in a major potential enemy of the United States, the Russian military and Air Force. Again, these planes cannot be replaced. If you've taken out a third of the strategic bombing capability of the Russians, that is a major win for the United States in terms of threat, potential threat in the future. Planes that cannot be replaced. Now, maybe China can build these planes, and maybe China will be able to sell them planes to replace them, but Russia cannot manufacture them. It's a big deal. Finally, Bannon is pissed off that Ukraine successfully struck more than 40 military planes. And he's really pissed off that they didn't let the White House know in advance. And he is insisting, this is MAGA God, he is insisting that the White House condemn Ukraine and pull all support today from the Ukrainians. Instead, Trump should say thank you to Zelensky. Should invite him to the White House, get down on one knee, and say thank you. But no, that's not what's going to happen. Instead, Trump took a phone call today with Putin. Putin called him to tell him how upset he was. It was a 75-minute call. This is what Donald Trump wrote. I just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine. Docked? What does docked airplanes mean? They were on the ground. But these are the airplanes from which he launches cruise missiles against Ukrainian cities. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine, and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. Here's the both sidism, right? Both sides. Nobody's responsible. Nobody started this war. It's everybody's fault. It was a good conversation. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. Putin, manipulating Trump. But not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. He'll have to respond. Well, isn't this a response to his bombing Ukrainian cities? Isn't he responds to, they respond, this is tit for tat, BS? This is Donald Trump. And then he goes, we also discussed Iran and the fact that time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. I stated to President Putin that Iran, the respect he has for Putin is stunning. I stated to President Putin that a president who's just being shown up by Zelensky, that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And on this, I believe that we were in agreement, really. President Putin suggested that he will participate in the discussions with Iran and that he could perhaps be helpful in getting this brought to a rapid conclusion. That's right. Let's have Putin, our ally, our friend, participate in the discussions and get a deal done. Because he's the guy we should count on. This is a deal. I mean, the whole MAGA has just been going nuts over the Russian attack. You'll hear a lot of fear-mongering. This will lead the Russians to use nuclear weapons. This is World War III. All the regular bullshit that they give you in terms of panics around this. Over and over and over again, they tell us that this will lead to nuclear war, F-16s, tanks, whatever. If we give them this, if we give them that, World War III, it doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. But the panic, the hysteria, the shilling for Russia is all over the place. Now, if only Ukraine could figure out a ground game that would actually allow them to push Russia out of its territory, that would be pretty amazing. That's the next step.